So, good morning to one and all. We have started with your fifth chapter of your unit 2. Okay, we have completed 3 chapters, and I told you that we are not doing fourth right now. We'll go with the fifth chapter first, and after that, in the last, we are going to do with the fourth chapter. Okay, and in fifth chapter, we have learned some concepts in the last lecture. It was including your blocking IO and the non-blocking IO. I told you what you mean by blocking IO and non-blocking IO, why there was a drawback we had in blocking IO, and then why there is a requirement of non-blocking IO. I hope you all remember. And then I gave you an example for the server socket. So if you remember, we had two interfaces with those diagrams where I told you that we have a socket interface and we have a server socket interface. With the help of server socket, what is going to happen? Basically, first of all, it is going to be installed into your, it is going to be present inside your server, who is responsible to listen to the request of the client, and then it will pass it to the socket of your server, which is going to have direct communication with the client. Okay, and then till the time the direct communication is not going to build between your client and the socket of your server, which is responsible to listen to the port numbers and the request from the client, till that time your server socket is not going to get free. So that means if any other client is requesting to the same server, so the client has to wait, the request has to wait. Okay, and then once the communication build between your client one and the socket of your server, then it is going to get free, and then another client requests are going to be handled. Okay, so that was like one option we had with the socket and the server socket. We came to know that there was a drawback between, a drawback of that blocking IO concept. So we came across with the non-blocking, where I told you that the non-blocking IO is having its own package, that is an IO package in Java, which is consisting of numbers of classes and the interfaces, which will help the operating system, which will help the client, which will help the server to establish a communication without any waiting time period. Okay, so that we have studied about the channels. Okay, how the channels are going to work. So there is going to be one term, I told you that there is one thing which is going to be present between your client and the server, who is going to handle the multiple channels, multiple requests. So that is something we known as what, selector. So if you want, I'll just show you that diagram first. Okay, so this was your clients and this was your server, which is running on single thread. In blocking IO, we were expected to have multiple threads to deal with multiple requests. Okay, so now here only one single thread is able to handle the multiple requests. That is only possible because we are going to, first of all, going to create a channel. So this is something like a channel which is going to create in between your client and the selector. Okay, so selector is something like one type of a class which is present, or one type of an, you can say like you can say a program which has been written between your client and a server. So that program is going to help the client as well as the server to have a multiple request at single point of time. Concurrent request we can deal with whenever we are going to have a concept called as selector. Okay, we can have simultaneous reading and writing also with the help of the selector. Fine. Now we'll start with this topic. I told you in the last lecture that we are going to start from here. So that is something known as what, selector. It is also been known as what, a multiplexer of selectable channel. That means it is having an option to deal with multiple channels at same point. Also it is going to help me to have a two-way communication, that is I can read or write. Okay, it's not that I'm just going to read first and once my reading is done the writing is going to happen. No, so there are number of clients. Any client can read the data. Any number of client can write the data into the file or into the server. Okay, so that is only possible with the help of your selectors. Now, what is the use of a selector? So as I told you that it is going to handle the multiple channels and it is going to work along only with the single thread. Okay, it is not requiring much thread. It is requiring very less number of threads to handle the channels. And switching between the threads is going to be very much expensive for the operating system. So that's why we need some kind of methods which we can implement into our server, which will help us to work efficiently with our communication channels, with our selectors and with our servers. Okay, how you're going to create a selector, what is going to be the syntax for that? So as I told you number of times, if I am using the predefined class or a predefined interfaces or predefined methods, whatever you have predefined in your Java development kit, in your libraries of your Java, okay, so that means you are directly going to use it. So why we are able to use that directly into a program? Because the working of those particular class and interface is already been written into that particular class and the interface. You don't have to write anything, you don't have to code it anything. The work of that particular class and the interface is already defined. Okay, you can also say that the code has already been written for that specific class and the interfaces. Okay, so that's why you have that option to use it directly into your program. Fine, and your program will understand that okay, this is like already been written somewhere, I just have to implement it whatever has been written for that specific class. Okay, so now here also if I just wanted to create a selector, so if I can just imagine I have a client, so that means I have a client page, that is your HTML page. Okay, then I have a server, so for example I have a servlet code. What is my expectation? That one HTML page is going to communicate to my servlet file. So not necessary that only one HTML file is going to communicate to my servlet file. So there is a chances of having numbers of client pages. So what is my expectation from my application is, when I have only one server side script file, that is your servlet file, I have written only one file. So what all things I can return inside that file, so that server file is able to handle the concurrent request which is coming from the simultaneous clients. Okay, so how I can handle the simultaneous request, that is a question for us as a developer. So what we can do, we can create some methods, we can write some methods. That can be one method is your selector. Okay, then what is the syntax of creating the selector? So once we create a selector, it is very much defined for the selector itself. The job role has been defined for the selector. We don't have to instruct to the selector that what it has to do in the program. Okay, so selector is automatically going to work in between your multiple clients and with your single servlet file which is running inside your server. Okay, so that is going to happen by its own. We don't have to make the program understand that what selector needs to do. Fine, so now how we are going to create a selector? So we have a selector here, so that is your defined one, defined class, and we are going to just create an object name. You can give anything. If you get confused, here the selector name is given to the object name. So if you feel that why two selectors are there, one is defined one, the capital S, the first one is your defined one. You cannot change anything into that. You cannot make some letters as capital and some as small, because it is case sensitive in terms of Java. Okay, the object name you can write anything, even your name you can write it over there. So if you get confused, just rename it. Fine, and then if I just wanted to start or just wanted to invoke the selector class and I want that it should start working between my client and the server, I should have a method called as open method. So it will open that communication between your client and the selector. And always remember, now in terms of selector, we will not have a direct communication of a client to the server. There will be one class available in between who is going to be responsible to build that communication. So it is going to be an intermediate who is going to talk between your talk with the client as well as your server. Okay, so maximum logic what we are going to write, it is obviously we are going to write for a selectors. Fine. Now I don't know whether we have seen this diagram or not, but then we'll see. So first of all, what we are here, we are going to have something called it is this one, and I'm going to have been connected to the selector, and then I have what a channels. Okay, so we have numbers of channels, so that means numbers of clients in which I am being connected to the selector. So I am going to have a web server over here. So all the clients using the different channels are going to communicate with the selector, and selector is responsible to redirect the request to the server and generate the response over here, and then response is coming back to the selector, and then selector is again going to redirect to the specific channels or a client. Okay, so whatever request comes, accordingly the response is being sent by the selector only. So there is no direct communication between your web server as well as your channel, or you can say client. Okay, So now here, whenever we are going to start with this kind of, practicals or this kind of programs or this kind of communication we want to build, the very first thing what we have to do is we have to register the server socket channel. Okay. Now, how we can do that? So if you remember the diagram where I had a client and I had a server, okay, and in that, what is going to happen? We used to have a server socket, okay. And I told you the client has to first communicate to the server socket, and then that server socket is going to send the request to the socket of the server, and then it will help the socket to have a direct communication with the client, so that the server socket can get free, and then it is going to listen to the another request from the another client. Okay, so that was a basic work of the server socket channel we have studied already. Okay, now when we talk about the selector, so but obviously in the selector I should have some mechanism to, identify each client from where the request is coming. I cannot randomly take the request from the client. First of all, I need to understand which request is coming from the which client. Okay, and how we are going to do that? We are just going to understand with the help of a port numbers. Okay, so port numbers or the host name of the client, that is going to help me to uniquely identify my clients to which I have to again send the response also. It's not only about accepting request, it's about giving the response also. So how I am going to identify? So for that need, what I have to do, I have to first of all make the selector to have one server socket channel into it, okay, which is going to be responsible to accept the incoming connections or incoming request from the clients. Okay, now how you're going to do that? You're going to have one parameter, that is something we known as what? Selection key dot op underscore accept. Okay, so now here what is going to happen? Your parameter, something called as op underscore accept, is going to tell to the server that now socket channel is very much ready to accept the new connections from the client. Okay, so we have to first of all register the socket server socket channel into my selector, which is responsible to listen to the port numbers of the client and the incoming connections which are coming from the client. And secondly, the second parameter, like the parameter which is consisting of this keyword called as op underscore accept, that means it is saying that the server socket channel is now ready and it is open to accept the new connection from a client. Okay, so that this kind of thing has to be written inside your selector. As I told you, that maximum part of the job which is been done by it is by your selector. Okay, this is only like response is been already available here, it just has to need to provide that response to the selector, not even to the clients. Okay, and the client part is just that it has to request, but then processing and then redirecting to the, specific places where the response can be generated, and then again that response given back to the client. So putting or keeping the records of the port numbers, host name, that all thing has to be done by your selector. Okay, so that selector is going to have a server socket channel which is responsible to listen to the port numbers through which the incoming connections are going to come. Okay, and then we are going to use a parameter that is something known as what? Selection key dot op underscore accept. And how you're going to do that? You are going to use an object of your server socket channel. So if you remember last lecture, I just gave you statements or a syntax of how to create an object of server socket channel and the socket class. So how you're going to do that? You're going to use an object of the server socket channel. As we know, if I'm going to create or I'm going to use a server socket channel inside my selector to listen to the connections which is going to come from the client end or request. Okay, so I have to use what? An object of your server socket channel. So considering here the object name what I have given, the server channel. Okay, and what method you have to register the server socket channel, that is a register method. And inside the register method, what you are going to write? The object of your selector interface. Okay, so if you remember in the last slide what we have done, done over there, we have created an object that is what? Selector. So for example, consider ABC of your selector interface. So what is going to be replaced over here? ABC. Okay, but in the last slide it was written as selector, so I am writing selector over here. And you have to write that parameter, that is what? Selection key dot op underscore accept. Okay, so what is going to happen? First of all, it is going to register your server socket channel, and then it is going to be implemented inside your selector, making your server understand that your selector is now ready to accept the incoming connections from the client. So this one statement is going to help so many things when I'm going to write it in my program. Okay, now we just need to understand over here that we are going to have one method inside, which is present inside your selectors interface, that is your select method. Okay, it is going to check whether there is anything ready to be act on. So that means if at all any connections are coming or incoming connections are there, or if any request is coming, so we just have to understand whether the selector is having any connections which is trying to get connect to, or is it the selector is ready to do to act upon to the connections where the connections are coming. Okay, so now to do this, what we have to do, we just have to call one method, that is select method, just to identify that is there any connections, open connections, which is coming from the client to which the selector has to act upon. So that we have to check with the help of a loop, that is a while loop, which is going to be known as an infinite loop if I am just putting as true boolean value over there. Okay, and if I just want to wait infinitely for the new activity, if at all the activity has not done, if at all the new connection is not coming, okay, if at all any client is not sending the request, so we are into the loop, we are just waiting for the request from the client end. And if at all the connections are coming from the client side, then what is going to happen, it is just going to accept, it is just going to happen with the help of your select method. Okay, so now what we have to do, we just have to have one loop, that is what, while loop. Okay, now here what is going to happen, I'm just having one variable called as what, ready count, you can give any name. Okay, it is going to carry an integer value, and here I am having the object of your selector interface. Okay, with the help of that object I am going to invoke a select method of your selector interface. Okay, now here what I'm saying, that if the value of this variable, if it is equals to 0, it is going to continue to wait until and unless it is going to change to the 1, or you can say like n number of requests we can accept from the client. But considering that there is no request, so that it is equals to 0, and if it is like this, it is going to continue to wait until and unless I am going to get any request or the connections request, and in which my selector is going to act upon. Okay, so this is how your selector is going to work. So it is nowhere said that it is not going to do anything if the connections are not available. It is depends on the loop, it what type of a loop we are creating. So if you're making our selectors to wait until it is going to get any request, we can use the infinite loop. And similarly you can change the loop structure also, like if you don't want to wait, don't want to make your selector to wait for the incoming request or a connection, if there is no incoming request or the connection, you can make your selector to stop taking that request also. So it is completely on the developer, like what you want to do it basically. Fine, if you really want to wait till the time the request is going to come, so your selectors can wait, so that you can do with the help of this kind of syntax. Now, why there is a requirement of NIO? Because I told you number of times it is having number of advantages over your blocking IO. Okay, so like it is going to be, it is not dependent on, first of all, that blocking system. So it is nowhere is going to implement that blocking IO concept where the server socket has to wait till the communication is going to build with the first client, and then it is going to serve to the another request or the another client. It is not like that, it can handle multiple requests, okay, at same point of time. Only thing is that we have to implement some methods, external methods into it, which will help the NIO to work like that. Okay, so it is going to implement the high speed IO, and then it is also being used for a greater increase in speed while communicating with your client as well as your server. That means like reading and writing should happen in a good speed. Okay, so if I am trying to read some value, I have requested some value to be read from my end, and that value is coming out of like after 5-10 minutes, so that is like not a good option for me. Okay, if I want to write something and after 5-10 minutes it is going to be written into the file which is present in server, so it is also not going to happen for me. Okay, so this is like it is giving some options, some good advantages, so that's why we can go over with the blocking IO, we can go with the NIO. Fine. Now we can just see the difference between your IO and the NIO. What is going to happen? The first thing it is that it is completely based on your blocking IO operation. Okay, and your NIO is based on your non-blocking IO operation. So always remember your IO operation happens with the help of your operating system. Okay, and it is going to try to communicate with your server with the help of that IO mechanism. We have to implement the IO package as well as the NIO package. So if I want to deal with the IO system, if I really want to make my application which will implement the concept of IO, so I have to import in my program, that is IO.star. Simple as that. So if I want to deal with NIO in my program, okay, I want to deal with the NIO in my application, I want to implement that concept. So if I want that my application should not have that waiting time period for the each request, okay, so I can implement NIO.star package in my program. Fine. IO is something being known as what? Stream oriented. Now, what do you mean by stream? What do you mean by buffer oriented? We'll come to know in the further slide. So I'm not focusing on here right now because it is one concept, a good concept we have in the future slides. So we'll study there. Just need to understand that IO is something being known as what? Stream oriented, and IO it is a buffer oriented. Okay. Here in IO, the channels concepts are not available, but in non-blocking IO operation, we know there are channels are available. Okay, and the IO is not having the selectors, but here in NIO selectors are available for the non-blocking IO operation. Fine. So this is like out of 4 points, 3 points we have, we know already what we have studied till now. Just the second point we are going to clear. Okay, now what do you mean by streams and what do you mean by blocks? Fine. When I talk about the stream, so when I say that IO is a stream oriented, okay, so what does it mean now? So when I talk about the streams or a stream oriented IO system, it is just going to deal with the data when it is going to read or write the data 1 byte at a time. Okay, so whenever I say an input stream or an output stream, okay, so only thing is there in the streams concept. When I say it is stream oriented IO system, so that means it is able to read either 1 byte of a data at a time, or it is been able to write the 1 byte of a data into the file. Okay, when I talk about the input stream, it is going to create or it is going to write 1 byte of, it is going to read 1 byte of a data. When I talk about the output stream, it is going to write 1 byte of a data into the file. Okay. And stream oriented IO is often been considered as slow just because that it is writing 1 byte or reading 1 byte of data at a time. That is the only thing. So that's why IO is being considered as what? Stream oriented. When I talk about the blocks, okay, so the block oriented IO buffer IO system is going to deal with the data in blocks. Okay, so that means the number of bytes of a data is going to get increased when I talk about the block oriented. So it is not going to have 1 byte, but it is going to have n number of bytes. It is being considered as one block. Okay, here each operation, either it can be your input stream operation or it is going to be your output stream operation. It is going to take or it is going to consume a block of data in one step. So if I'll give you an example, say I have a file, text file, I have written 5 lines of, 5 lines or 5 statements into that. So as with the help of my program, what I want to do it, I just want to read those 5 lines, okay, and just want to have that response to my client. So what is going to happen? So when I talk about the stream oriented, then one by one the, one by one all the bytes are going to be read. So obviously when I'm talking about block oriented, so I'm just considering, say, out of 5 lines, 3 lines are being, coming into one block. So the maximum, you can say the bytes or the maximum space which has been decided for the block oriented IO is going to be taken. So as I told you, like in block say 1024, okay, so I'll say 1024 bytes are being read when I talk about the block oriented. So 1024 byte means it is almost nearby to 1.024 KB. Okay, so as I told you that if I'm talking about the block oriented IO, so maybe the data which is being read as a block, it is carrying 1 KB of data. Okay, where in case of your stream oriented, only 1 byte of data has been read. So obviously which is going to be more, what you can say, good in performance while reading and writing, it is block oriented, where I have 1 byte of data to be read or 1 KB of data to be read. It is two different, it is completely like having a huge difference while reading and writing. Fine. So the block oriented data is going to deal with the blocks. Okay, so that you can say the maximum capacity of the blocks you can decide as a developer. You can allocate that kind of, that value to the program, and that program is going to read that much of data at one together in terms of blocks, in the form of blocks. Now here again, as I told you that we have a block oriented, which is going to deal with the blocks of data. It is going to have an input and output stream. That means it is going to have a reading and writing. So reading can be happen in the format. That means 1 KB of data can be written all together at once in your file instead of writing 1 byte at a time. Okay, when I talk about writing or an output stream, so it is going to write the data, or it is going to read the data in the form of blocks in one step. It is not going to have 1 byte at a time. Fine. So obviously it is going to be much faster when I talk about the block oriented comparatively your byte stream. Okay, just give me a moment, students, just 1 minute. So I hope you have understood the difference between your stream oriented and the block oriented. Okay, so the only difference you can just talk about the block oriented, that it is not going to be as simple as your stream oriented. It is going to lack some of the other way, that simplicity, when I talk about the block oriented. Otherwise it is having all the advantages over your stream oriented IO. Fine. Now, when I talk about the stream oriented and buffer oriented, so I hope that you have understood that difference when I had in IO that it is stream oriented. So you have understood, I think, the stream oriented point. Now, when we talk about the NIO, where I had a difference, that it is something called it as what, buffer oriented. So what is going to happen over here when I talk about the stream oriented? We know now how stream oriented is going to work. It is going to read or write the data 1 or more bytes at a time. So it is not 1 or more, it is going to be 1 byte at a time from the stream. Okay, so this approach is going to be very slow when I am going to transfer the data from one end to the another end. Okay, so we can see the diagram here, that is like I have a data source from where the data is going to get generated, or the client where the data is being sent. I have a data sink, or you can say the server. In between I have written the Java program which is going to accept the value, which is going to write the value over here. Now, when I'm going to send the data, so obviously I have a stream, that is something we can call it as input stream. So I'm just sending the value, okay, and that value has to be written into the server. So when I put the value, I am going to use an input stream. Okay, when I am going to read the value, I'm just going to have into the server. So always remember, when I say input stream, it is reading. Output stream means it is writing. Okay, so whatever data I'm going to collect it over here, it is going to be written over here. So we are just using output stream. Okay, and if the data what I have stored over here, it is been written over here, and in future I just want to read it from here in the data source, what will happen, your data sink should send those data which is installed, or which is just stored into this data sink, to the Java program, and that Java program is going to help me to read the data with the help of your input stream. Okay, now always remember, your stream oriented is going to be always one way. Okay, so that means at one point of time, either you can read or you can write. You cannot do both the tasks. Reading and writing together is not going to happen. Okay, so that is like a disadvantage. So it is just a one way option we have when we are going to have either a reading from the data sink, or we can write the data into the data sink. Okay, now when we talk about the buffer oriented, so it will come over the disadvantage what I have just told you. Okay, that is, it is going to work as a two-way. So it is not going to wait that once the reading is done or a writing is done, or vice versa. So it is not going to happen that in terms of your buffer oriented, it is going to have the channels. It is going to provide the two-way communication. It is going to have two-way data transfer. Okay, so here, first of all, the data is never been going to approach the server directly. It is going to have a buffer where the data is going to be stored. So it is going to be read from there, or it can be written into that file which is there into the buffer. Okay, now here if I can show you the diagram also, if you can see. So again, I have what, a Java program. I have a data sink and the data source in one place. So what is going to happen over here? I can read and I can write in, from the same place. So that's why what is going to happen, it is going to help me to have a two-way communication. So the channel can read the data from the buffer, or the channel can also write the data into the buffer. So I can have the buffers over here which has been created. So the Java program is going to do what? It is going to try to read the file or read the content which is present inside your data sink. Okay, once the reading is done, if it is trying to write those contents, it is going to write into the buffer and it is going to be written over here. Okay, so you can read the data also, you can write the data also from the buffers. Fine, it is not directly stored into your either data sink or a data source, but it is going to be there inside your buffers. Fine. Now, when I talk about the next topic, that is what your integrated IO. So here integrated IO means I'm going to have a package that is like IO original package, and then I have an IO package which is going to be there together into one of the Java platform or development kit, that is your 1.4. Okay, it is integrated, it is placed together, that is IO and NIO in JDK 1.4 or a higher version. So what you can do, you can just use the NIO concept also with the help of your IO package, and you can have NIO.star also in your program. It is completely your choice. If you just want to use the NIO packages and the NIO classes and interfaces, just say that NIO.star. If you want that, you want to use an integrated option where I have IO as well as NIO, so you can go with your IO.star. Okay, now we know that what is the difference between blocking and non-blocking IO. In blocking IO, it just like a brief we are going to learn here. When I talk about the Java IO, which is a blocking IO, so it is first of all going to have a thread which is going to invoke a read or write method. Okay, the thread is going to be completely blocked until there is some other request is going to come, some values to be read or written. Till the time you are not going to have some other request, it is going to block, it is going to allocate to the socket of the server. And once the new request comes, it is going to free itself, and then the another socket is been created inside your server which is going to handle to the another client. So similarly, like that way, your blocking IO is going to have what? Blocking of your server socket channel. Okay, when I talk about the non-blocking, it is not going to happen like that. It is going to enable a thread, it is going to have one thread which is going to handle multiple requests. Okay, it is going to have channels, it is going to have selectors which is going to help that one single thread to handle the concurrent request and generate the response for the concurrent request. And I hope that you have now you have enoughly know what do you mean by channels. So these channels are something which is been created between your client and the selectors, which is responsible to transport the data from the clients to the selectors. Okay, it can read and write simultaneously also. So it is going to have the data transmission efficiently between your client and the byte buffers, the buffers which is been created, or you can say the selectors which we are going to create it. Okay, also the channel been also known as what? Gateway, which is been provided by your Java NIO, which is going to access the IO mechanism of your operating system. Okay, it is going to have one-to-one relationship with the operating system, but obviously if I'm trying to access the IO mechanism of my operating system, so it is going to have a direct relationship with the operating system. And it is only going to happen when the connection is going to build between your operating system, which is working like a client, and the server. Okay, and when I talk about the dependency, as we know in the previous lecture, we learned this, that channels are also providing me as a platform independent feature, because when it comes inside your Javas, automatically all the methods which is been all the class or the interface or the packages, libraries, whichever is been developed, it is keeping in mind, it is making as what? Platform independent. So there should be no option like a platform dependent, whichever packages and the libraries you're going to have inside your Java development kit. Okay, and where you can find this channel interface, you can find inside your NIO.star. Fine. And when I talk about the integrated IO, so you can find inside your IO.star only when you are going to install the JDK, which is more than 1.4 version. Okay. Now we're going to just have a look in this diagram. So we have a main interface, that is your channel. So channel is an interface, it has been written over here. We are going to have two parts inside the channel. We have two things for reading and writing the byte form of data, that is we have readable byte channel and we have writable byte channel. They both are again the interface. And then we have what the another sub parts into this. So that means this scattering byte channel comes under your readable byte channel. Your byte channel interface comes under in both readable and writable, and then gathering byte channel comes. So here, from here, you are not going to use anything. It's just your readable and writable byte channel you're going to use, and the main interface name you're going to use it. Okay. Then server socket channel, and the socket channel comes under the main class, that is your selectable channel. Fine. So not much needed from this, just two interface or a three interface, and the last two class we are going to use. Now how you're going to have a channel implementation? So we are going to have four different things how we can four different ways how we can implement the channels. The very first is what your file channel. Okay. Now here what is going to happen, the file channel is responsible. It is going to use the reading of data and writing of the data from the files. So basically whenever it is going to have that reading and writing part using this particular channel, that is something we're known as file channel. Okay. So it is just going to happen when the object is been created first of all to this. Okay. So the object of file channel is going to help me to call the reading and to have that reading and writing whenever I'm going to invoke one method called as what, get channel method. Now how you can do that? See, directly you cannot have the file channel for reading. Okay. So if you remember, in SY we had this input stream and output stream option available. Input stream, I always told you that it is meant for reading. Output stream is always meant for writing. And if I was just want to replace it with the some other concept, that is reader and writer, so your file input stream will become what, file reader. Similarly your file output stream becomes your file writer. Okay. So now here what is going to happen, so if I just want to read the data, okay, so now here what you have to understand, so file input stream, you're going to use the defined class from your io.star. You have created an object, this is your new operator and this is your constructor where I'm going to call one path. And in that path what is being said, that you have to read the data. This class has to read the data from the file called it as what, test in.txt. So if you remember, we always used to have a two files inside one folder which we used to create it. Okay. So that is one will be your Java file and one will be your text file. Fine. So that text file, if I'm putting into the same folder where my Java file is been stored and or we can say the saved, so we don't have to mention the path, we just have to call the file name. But here what we are going to consider, that the file, that is Java file, is not being placed into the same folder where the text file are present. So what we have to do, we have to give the path. So what is been written over here, the D drive. So that means considering, say for example, the Java file is in C drive and my text file is in the D drive. So I have just given the path over here, that the file input stream need to search the file into the D drive, which is been named as what, testin.txt, and which is going to be read by this file. Okay. And whichever data has been read, it is going to come to this object. Okay. So first thing is what, we have to just mention the file input stream through which I'm going to read the data from the text file. Okay. Then after that what I have to do, I have to use the interface, that is what, readable byte channel. So I told you, whenever we talk about the channel interface, we have two things, that is readable byte channel and writable byte channel, which is going to help me to read the data in the form of bytes from the channel from where the data is coming. Also I have the writable byte channel, which is going to help me to write the data in the form of bytes into the channel, which is going to be sent back to your client. So what I'm going to do, if I just want the data which has been read by your file input stream, now I want that data to be there into the channel, which is going to the server is in the channel. So here I cannot send the data directly from the client to the server, so it is not going to work me as a non-blocking IO. So what I have to do, I have to make the channel understand into his language that what data I have read from the client, and that I can do with the help of file input stream. After reading, I have to give back to the channel. So how it is going to happen? I'm going to use an interface, call it as what, readable byte channel. I'm going to create an object, and you just have to put all the values which is been held by your object called as file input stream, that is FIS, and you are going to invoke a method that I told you that there is only one method that your object is going to get, object is going to invoke, and your data is being read by your channel, that is something called as file channel, with the help of a method, that is what, get channel method. Okay, so you just have to invoke that method with the help of an object of your file input stream. Fine. Once you do this, what is going to happen? Your data is going to be stored into your readable byte channel, and that is the object which you have created, RBC. When I talk about the another one, that is your datagram channel. Okay, so the next one is, you can see here, socket channel, and this is your datagram channel. So there is two protocol you're going to learn over here, that is one is UDP and one is TCP. First of all, I just make you understand that what UDP and what TCP protocols are. One is going to be the connection oriented protocol, and one is going to be the connection less protocol. Okay, so out of this, your UDP is a connection less protocol, and your TCP is your connection oriented protocol. Okay, now what do you mean by connection less and connection oriented? The connection oriented means your TCP, first of all, is not going to read or write data directly without establishing the connection. So TCP protocol always first establish the connection between client and the server. Okay, so that establishment should happen first, and then only it can start reading and writing the data. But in terms of UDP, what happens? It doesn't wait for that establishment. It directly starts the reading and writing over the network. Okay, so that is why it is said as connectionless and connection oriented. So first, TCP depends on the connection. If it is only established, then only it will have that communication. In UDP, it doesn't need to have that. It is directly going to have the communication. Okay, without even having that establishment. No need to have that, confirmation that the establishment has done. Fine. So how you are going to have the opening of the datagram channel and closing of the datagram channel? So what is the syntax for that? Just you have to use a method called as open and close. Okay, so you can have a datagram channel here, the interface, the object you have created, just invoke an open method. So that means in your program, if you're just using this statement, so that means you're instructing to your program that you are going to use an UDP protocol to read and write the data over the network. Okay, so that is the only thing you have to understand over here. Next is what your socket channel. So in socket channel, what is going to happen here? Instead of UDP, which is going to be used as a protocol, that is your TCP protocol. And again, what is like syntax for open and the closing? We have socket channel interface name, and then we have a open and close method. So here you just have to make the socket channel understand that to which it has to get connect to. So if I'm just creating a socket channel object over here, and I'm saying that it should open, now it start with the communication, it should establish the connection. So what is going to happen? So first of all, I told you that the TCP is not going to start that communication between client and the server until and unless the connection is going to get established. So this statement has not been written inside your UDP. Okay, because it is not waiting for that communication to get established. So to make the communication established, I have to make the I have to give the name of the host as well as the port number of that host to which I have to establish a connection. Then only your socket channel is going to work. Fine. So for that need, what I have to do, I have to use a method called as connect method, and I'm going to use this, obviously the network method, that is inet socket address, to which I'm going to provide two parameter, that is the host name and the port number. Once this connect method is going to get successfully executed, then connection is establishing to this specific host and the port, then only your socket channel is going to get open, and it can have the transfer of data or for reading and writing over your network TCP IP. Okay, similarly with the close one. And I think this is the last one. We can stop with the lecture once I am done with this. So that is your server socket channel. Okay, so again, this is like one interface which is going to use a TCP protocol. The only difference between your socket channel and the server socket channel, that the server socket channel is going to allow to the user, or it is going to listen to the incoming TCP connections for the web servers. Okay, so when I talk about the socket channel, it is like reading and writing the data over the network. It is something like you are going to just listen to the incoming request so that you can just pass it to the web server, to the socket channels, and that socket channel is going to have that communication. So server socket job is only that it is going to transfer the request to the specific socket available, so that that communication can happen. Fine. So here also again you are going to have the same syntax. The only thing is that you're going to have, instead of socket channel, you're going to have a server socket channel. You're going to invoke an open method. You're going to have the inet. So now here some changes we have. Okay, so what you're going to do, you're going to use an object of what, the server socket channel, that is what, ch. As I told you, the server socket channel job is what, only to pass or just to redirect the client request to the specific socket which is available, which can handle the request of a client and can establish the connection, right? So now what is going to happen? I am just going to say that please connect to the socket method of your socket channel, and please bind that request to the specific port number. So I'm just instructing to my socket channel with the help of a server socket channel. Just create a picture over here. Okay, this is the last one. If you can understand this, and then we can stop. So I have a client which is sending one request. So that request is going to be first catched by your server socket channel. Okay, the server socket channel is just going to open that connection, and it will start listening to the request which is coming from a client. Now once it is understood that which request has been sent to which socket in your web server, so it is going to be sent to the socket of your server, that is your socket channel. Okay, now your socket channel is going to accept that request from your server socket channel, and that socket channel is going to start establishing the communication with the client, so that your server socket channel can get free, and it will start accepting the another request from the another client. So now what I have to do, this, it is not going to happen automatically. The server socket channel not going to have that automatically, the passing of that request to the socket channel, and then the socket is going to start with the communication. No, it doesn't happen automatically. We have to instruct it. So what I'm saying, that I have to bind the request along with the the connection which is coming from the server socket to a socket channel into the web server. I'm just going to pass the port number from which the request has come. So that port number is going to come here, so that your server socket channel is going to instruct to your socket channel saying that please use this port number coming from this specific client, and you have to start establishing that particular communication. Okay, so it is going to bind that particular port number to your socket channel. Fine, that binding is going to happen to the socket channel with the help of the object of your server socket channel. I hope you have understood this, and if not, please do let me know. We can just again study this. So there is no hard and fast rule that we have to go with the syllabus. I can wait, I can just revise it again. So if you're not getting, please let me know. So this is last thing which we are going to do it today. We'll do this program tomorrow. Okay, I'll just stop sharing this now. Just let me know that if you have not understood anything, students. By the time I can share the attendance link with you all. Anyone, if you
मैम
have any? Yeah.
मैम सॉकेट चैनल और सर्वर सॉकेट चैनल दोनों को सेम स्टेटमेंट में इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं?
See, ये हम लोगों को करना ही पड़ेगा, because in a program when we are going to write something, okay, where I'm trying to have that picture in my mind to establish whole those communications between client and server, तो सबसे पहला मुझे server socket channel ही बनाना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? And after that, when it is been made, I have to make some kind of code in my socket channel where it is going to accept that request from server socket. So प्रोग्राम में ना वो फ्लो हम लोग को निकाल के देना पड़ेगा, प्रोग्राम को ही समझाना पड़ेगा कि ओके, there is one server socket who is going to listen to the port number, and that port number is been passed to the socket channel, and then that socket channel is going to start establishing the communication with the client, so that your server socket is going to get free. Okay, so like we have to use it. There is no other way, we are going to use it separately into the separate files. It is not happening. We have to make it use in the same place, so that only that server socket and socket is going to communicate to each other कि उनको करना क्या है basically with the client's request.
हेलो मैम।
हेलो, हाँ
हेलो
सुधीर, हाँ हाँ बोलो बोलो।
मैम, अगर मल्टीपल थ्रेड्स है तो हम लोग को मल्टीपल कनेक्टर्स यूज करना पड़ेगा
नहीं,
कनेक्शन
ये
के
चीज
लिए,
मैंने आपको
मल्टीपल
इसलिए
सेलेक्टर।
नो नो नो, सी यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सर्वर सॉकेट राइट नाउ, कि लाइक हमको अगर मल्टीपल रिक्वेस्ट है तो मल्टीपल सर्वर सॉकेट यूज करना है, ऐसा कुछ क्वेश्चन है आपका? लाइक व्हाट आई एम अंडरस्टैंडिंग, सो अगर नहीं है तो प्लीज लेट मी नो, लाइक यू कैन जस्ट टेल मी द क्वेश्चन अगेन।
हाँ मतलब मैम, आपने वो डायग्राम दिखाया था ना कि एक थ्रेड था, फिर बाद में सेलेक्टर था, फिर उसके बाद
हाँ
मल्टीपल क्लाइंट
करेक्ट।
से। तो मैम एक थ्रेड था, अगर मल्टीपल थ्रेड्स हुए तो हम लोग सेम सेलेक्टर से मतलब क्लाइंट से कनेक्शन वो कर सकते हैं।
See, yes, you can do. It is completely dependent on the developer whether you want to deal with the client's request only with a single thread. So here, what is been said that your non-blocking IO is able to handle concurrent request with one single thread also. Okay, अगर तुमको अपना प्रोग्राम का या एप्लीकेशन का परफॉर्मेंस इंक्रीज करना है, you have a good option to create 2 or more threads. Okay, आप multiple threads बनाओ, कंसिडरिंग कि आपके पास सिर्फ
ओके।
4-5 रिक्वेस्ट नहीं है, आपके पास मिलियंस ऑफ रिक्वेस्ट आ सकती हैं, ठीक है? सो ऑब्वियसली जब आई एम गोइंग टू हैव अ मिलियंस ऑफ रिक्वेस्ट, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू वर्क along with only one thread. Okay, I have to have multiple threads, not that much of thread what blocking IO is going to take, but it is going to be much lesser than the blocking IO. I hope I am clear with this. Like जिसने भी question पूछा था, you can have multiple threads. Okay, there is no problem. It just
यस मैम।
dependent on how
यस
much
मैम।
request you are going to have. So on that basis, you can create the threads. Yes, anyone